This edition of Mac Voices is sponsored by Smile, the makers of world-class software like PDF Pen for Mac, PDF Pen Pro for Mac, PDF Pen for iPhone and iPad, PDF Pen Scan Plus for iPhone and iPad, Text Expander for Mac, and Text Expander for iPhone and iPad. Learn more about all their great products at smilesoftware.com. Hi, I'm Chuck Joyner, and this is Mac Voices. Folks, this is a Mac Voices live taping on Facebook. We're trying a couple of experiments, so if we are live on Facebook the way we're supposed to be, thank you for joining us. And if not, you get to enjoy us later through the normal Mac Voices podcast feeds, YouTube channel, Vimeo channel, everywhere we usually publish. This time, we're going to talk about Jamf, Jamf Now and Jamf Pro. This is remote device management software, and I thought it would be interesting to talk to someone who actually deployed some of this stuff instead of talking to just the company reps, talk to somebody who actually was doing it. That's why David Ginsburg is here. David, great to see you as always. Thanks for being here.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me, Chuck.
Yeah, this is something a little bit new. We're still trying everything and trying it out, so I appreciate you being a little bit of a guinea pig. I hope it goes well.
Yeah, I think it will.
Yeah. So, Jamf, let's talk a little bit about Jamf in general. And folks, I want to start out by doing a little bit of a disclaimer here. Both David and I work in the insurance industry, and that means that there are financial services companies that value their privacy as well as having a lot of regulations surrounding their privacy. Yep. So we can't talk in specifics here. We're going to talk in a bit of generalities, but I'm hoping it will be informative for you to maybe, if it's something your business need, if it's something you and your school need, this will give you an idea of what it's like and how it goes. So with that, David, let's talk a little bit about how you got involved with this. You were looking for some remote device management software, and Jamf is one of the first things that comes to mind.
Right, and most of what's being looked for is it's with iOS devices, of course, and then of course Macs, and that's what's great about Jamf. And there's not a lot of great tools out there that give you some opportunities to being able to manage them. Working with Windows obviously is a much easier platform to manage when you're pretty much an all Windows environment. But Macs can have their challenges, and you want to be able to make sure they're compliant to their both the Windows and the Mac world. I mean, you look at some of these big companies that are rolling out Jamf now, like IBM, 150,000 different machines that are out there. Cisco is 50% Mac, 50% PC. So, I mean, being able to manage these devices in an enterprise environment can be a challenge. And I think Jamf meets the need, and both the products they offer, going small, medium business as well as large business, gives everybody a good opportunity to be able to manage these devices properly.
Now, I should have said this up front, that Jamf has been a sponsor of this show. They're not currently. I hope they will be again.
Yeah.
But that's yeah. But under the heading of full disclosure, I think we have to say that. So Apple has a little bit of remote device management software out there, but nothing nearly as complete as Jamf. And I would, if you can, because I know you have experience with both Jamf Now, which is the kind of personal version, and Jamf Pro, which is the heavy-duty business version. How much difference do you find between the two, and what kind of capabilities does one have that the other one maybe doesn't?
Oh my gosh, Jamf Pro is incredible. I mean, it's got its own world out there. I mean, there's lots of development that's out there. You're doing a lot of scripting, a lot of installation of packages, being able to install all the software that you need to be able to install, and that in itself gives it like a completely different 360-degree turn between what Jamf Now can do and what Jamf Pro can do. Jamf Now is probably more of a like you said, for personal, but it's a pretty good robust system for small and medium business too. You mentioned Apple as far as their device program. They have their device enrollment program that they provide for all Apple users. So you can actually set up a device enrollment program for your company and being able to allow these devices to be enrolled by Apple, because what will happen is when you get the device is automatically registered to your particular company, and in that case, if the device were ever to be lost or stolen, the person who would have that device wouldn't be able to use it because it'd be locked down because of it being registered specifically to that corporation. So you have that, and then of course you hear the acronym MDM. It's the mobile device management. Of course, a laptop is a mobile device as much as an iPhone or an iPad is, and being able to manage all those devices easily without having to go through all this manual process of installing all this software, that's what makes it a lot more challenging. So that's what Jamf really comes into play in the corporate world versus the personal world, where we, most of us, a lot of your viewers and listeners are here that they manage their stuff through their family plans and such like that. But these tools are just incredibly powerful.
Is it fair to say, and by the way, if I do ask any questions inadvertently that you're not comfortable answering, it's it's fine. But during your experience, you've deployed this to iPhones, to iPads. Have you deployed it to Macs as well?
Well, I've done all of them. So Macs as well. I've done all across the whole platform. So I've tried all those particular devices. Macs in themselves, is what's great about it is you have configurations that you can set up, policies you can set up. You can remote erase a device, a Mac as well. You can set up patch management. That's always the biggest challenge. You're always having to go out to the software server and being able to make sure everything's up to date. Well, you can enforce the policy by creating policies, and works very similar to how Windows works. When you have Active Directory controls what goes in and out, and there's other software type packages that allow you, like Microsoft also has another product called Software Center. It's called SCCM. Allows the enterprise to be able to push all these packages of software very quickly and easily. In fact, Jamf actually integrates with it, so it makes it a lot easier to even work depending on how the company works. So the other thing too is with when I mentioned patch management, that's the other problem. Software, people install all the different products out there, whether it be Adobe or Microsoft Office or any of the number of packages that are out there. And keeping them up to date is always a challenge, where the nice thing about Jamf Pro is because it's always live and on, it's checking the devices on a constant basis. You set the patch management to be able to push those updates very quickly and easily. And in enterprise, that's very critical.
Okay, boy, there are a lot of things here I want to touch on. So, one thing there, I'm afraid I will forget it, so I'll ask this. Since Jamf now, Jamf Pro, whichever, is running on the device, especially iDevices, does that impact any of the battery life or anything like that, since it's always checking?
Not at all. In the great thing about the iOS device is it installs the little profile, and as well as it does that on a Mac. So you don't normally see that in your settings. You'll actually see an icon that says profiles. If you have VPN software, there's always a profile that's installed that allows you to be able to connect to your VPN. Same thing with a Mac, and that's what Jamf will do. It'll install a profile, and then it's linked back to your Jamf server. I'll kind of go down the road a little bit of how Jamf Pro works, because Jamf now is all cloud. It's always on cloud. It's always going to be on cloud. And Jamf Pro is cloud as well. But some companies may not like the fact that they may not like cloud. They may not want their services out on the cloud. So they also have what's called an on-premise version that allows you to be able to install the software locally onto a server, and then it still goes out to the internet, but the corporation has control, so it's installed internally, but allows you to be able to still manage it very easily. But some companies feel that they want to keep it secure, so you have that option as well. I don't have a problem with cloud. I think we're all using cloud now, and Jamf is really pushing it, and it probably makes life a lot easier the way it works. But you have both those options, which is nice.
We should probably acknowledge we have a couple of people in the chat room now on Facebook Live. So welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for being here. And they're also harassing us, which is no big surprise, right?
Got some questions, I hope.
Yeah. Okay, so we don't have any problems with power management. So. And I know every time we talk about Jamf and we talk about this remote device management software, you can install apps, you can delete apps, you can wipe the devices, So what is the process for installing an app? I'm going to jump ahead and talk about. I'll let you talk about that as opposed to just how you set up Jamf to start with.
Well, let me tap a little bit into Jamf now. So really, now you go into the device, you set up what's called a blueprint, and a blueprint set up in such a way. I've got it set up again. My Jamf Now account is my personal account, so I've got the free version. So I wanted to play around with it to get a little understanding of how it worked. So the way the apps install is you actually set up the blueprint and then you go into the specific apps icon, and it'll allow you to be able to push the apps. Now there is a thing called the volume purchase program through Apple that you have to set up, but you can set up if you don't want to have a volume purchase program with them. And what that basically is, it allows your organizations to purchase apps on behalf of employees. So it allows them to be able to have a centralized place when if they have apps that they're purchasing, they want a place to be able to put them. Instead of you're signing into your own personal Apple ID and downloading an app, well, the company has the control of being able to downloading those apps if they're purchased. Now, Jamf, the cool thing about Jamf is it does allow you to be able to use your own account if you want to, or you could even use just a generic Apple ID if you wanted to for the downloading of free apps. The nice thing about Jamf is it allows you to be able to manage those apps. So you know how it is when we're always up. When you pull up your iPhone, you see that icon there. There's 32 app updates that need to be done, and you have to remember to do it. Well, the nice thing is it's a live heartbeat every time. The Jamf servers are always looking at the device, and it's going to forcibly push any of those updates that have to be done specific to that device. So in itself, app management and relates to iOS works really well, and it keeps it very up to date, which I like.
So I can create a generic account, a business account, if you will. And my company is Acme, so yeah. I create an Acme account. And I purchase apps through the Apple program, and then right. I can deploy them to any iDevices I wish.
Right. That is correct. So any free apps, you could do that. If you want to do purchased apps through Jamf, you'd have to subscribe to the volume purchase program and have to set that up. I think anybody can set that up. It's a token that has to be actually installed on the device. So that gives you the option of being able to do that. So now also, if you know, that Apple also has push notifications, and that's called APNs. And you also have to get a certificate from Apple to be able to allow these devices to have that push notification service installed on whether it be a Mac or a PC. And that push notification service will actually tell you that the device is registered to Jamf, and it's also going to be able to push anything that has to be pushed relating to applications. So so you have that. There's a lot of working parts when it comes to Jamf. It's a lot different as far as setting up just a simple way of like the family sharing plan. Let's say we've talked about it many times before. So
right. Okay, so I've got my devices set up, and now I've got my apps installed.
Yep.
Now we have updates. Now you and I would normally pull up and I'm kind of focusing on iOS because I think that's where this is most useful. So you and I would go to the App Store, hit update, and all the updates would come down. Is that something that the remote user can do on their own, or do you decide when it's time to update a given app?
You have a choice. So it really depends on what you feel is the best way to do it. As I said, in Jamf now, it sets up a blueprint, and you can go in the blueprint and actually make changes in the blueprint and saying what the device can be, what the device can and can't do. So here's a good example. If you want to be able to go into the device and say, oh, hey, I don't want the camera to be accessible at all. I want to secure it. You can go in and Jamf will be able to remove the camera app, and you will not be able to take a picture, bar none. So you can go in and make changes to all the different apps that are in core. As we know, when Apple released iOS 11 and iOS 10, they started releasing where you could remove the core apps that you didn't like, let's say the stocks and all that kind of stuff. But there are some apps you can't do. Well, you have control of that as well. So even the Game Center, things like that. If there might be those apps you don't want someone to control. Really, the goal of Jamf is to keep things secure. That's really what the goal is when it comes to that. And then you want your devices to be secure in such a way where some companies may want to control how their devices go out onto the internet and how they function. And there might be something that they can't do or they don't want to do. They can push other apps. Maybe they have internal apps they can do that. So yeah, so it's really, that's where the goal is as far as the control of where it goes.
Okay. I want to go back to the Mac for a second, just because we talked about deploying the iOS software. Is there a significant difference with deploying it to a Mac, or is it basically the same process?
Well, it's the same process. What it is you set the account up for what's called open enrollment. You can do it in many different ways. In Jamf now, there's an actual open enrollment setting, and what you do is you create a link. And in the case of my link, you'd say whatever my name is at .jamfcloud.com. So you enable it, and then you just send that link to somebody if you want somebody in your family or the business. If you want the business to say, hey, I want this Mac, or I want this PC. I'm not the PC. Gosh, I say PC because I kind of do both there. Yeah. You want your Mac to be able to enroll into Jamf. That's one way of doing it. There's also another way where you actually create what's called a package, and you install. It's called a quick plugin package, and you actually install the package manually, or you can tell the user, okay, here, install this package. So then that package installs, and it as far as installing that particular package, and allows you to be able to connect it to Jamf. So then you can start controlling what the device does.
Got it. I feel like we're all over the place here, and part of it's my fault.
It's okay. I was answering your questions.
Yeah, well, and there's so many interesting things here about how to control this. So I have control over. Can I prevent the user, or maybe that's the best way to say it. Can I prevent the user from installing an app on their own, or is this a situation where the only way for them to get an app on the phone is as the administrator, I approve it and put it there?
Yes. So if you go into Blueprint, the blueprint that you create, again, they use the term blueprint because it's a blueprint. It's mapped out to how your structure is going to be in your small business on Jamf now. And you go through the different settings. Now, there's a tab in the blueprint called restrictions. Now, you can go in, and I can kind of give you some of the items that you can block. And some of the big ones, especially for businesses, small businesses for sure, and go all the way up to big businesses. Disabling iCloud backup, disabling iCloud keychain, disabling screenshots, disabling Siri. You can go through and disable all these things. You mentioned disabling installing apps. You can disable the App Store completely, and the icon will be actually removed from the phone, from the device. It won't be on the home screen. So then that's a really controlled environment. So if the company wants to be able to control their devices, this is the way to go. You can even disable deleting apps, so you can't even delete an app at all. You can disable the iTunes Store, so you can't even go out. So, but I really hate to work for a company that did a lot of these settings because what's the point of having your iOS device when you want to be able to at least do some things? So, but it really goes granular. I mean, I can keep going. There's a real long list of stuff that's in restrictions that you can set. Now, some of those things I mentioned is called what they call supervised devices only. So that means you would have to set it up so it's in supervised mode, and so like I said, some of those things are pretty extreme. Not disabling installing apps and disabling deleting apps and disabling the iTunes Store. That's pretty drastic. So you would have to really want to set up these devices in a supervised setting in Jamf to allow them to do that. Those other ones I mentioned earlier are basics that you can just turn on and turn off. So I played around with it. I wanted to see disabling the camera. Did it work? I was like, wow, yeah, the camera's gone. I can't take a picture on my iPhone. It's crazy. I mean, how would you? It's kind of a pointless device if I don't have to be able to use my camera on it. So, but yeah, that's what's great about it. You have other things you can set too as far as it goes. You can control how it connects to Wi-Fi. You can control how you can actually set up email accounts, so it automatically sets up email accounts. How cool is that? Because a lot of times, it may be a corporation, the company. They have set settings of how to set up their email. Well, you can put it in here, and it'll actually set it up. And you can do Google, you can do Yahoo, and you can set up any Exchange. Any of those types of services are available setting up email. Going into security. Of course, you can enforce passcode. The big thing on Mac, let's go we're going back and forth here, but file vault, that's important. Huge thing, encryption, making sure your Mac is encrypted. Well, Jamf now, and Jamf Pro for that matter, will both enforce file vault encryption. And it tells it, okay, it's going to enable it, and it's going to say it has to be encrypted. It'll start encrypting right off the bat once it's in the policy and being able to push it. So.
Mike in the chat room pointed out that that's why a lot of people have two phones. They have a company phone and they have their own phone. And of course, that in some ways that sort of defeats the purpose. But it also guarantees that at least the company won't be liable for anything that shouldn't be done that the employee does. It would be only the employee that has the liability.
I think that's why you're probably seeing a lot of trends with companies in general using the BYOD platform, bringing your own device. So they can control it in other ways, whether it be a platform specific to using the actual native mail app, or, Microsoft, of course, has their Intune products and Azure AD, and being able to control things through that platform and using the Outlook app. You can easily control email that way as opposed to doing a full out control of the device. But if the device is owned by the company, they have every right to control what goes on, especially if it's going to be directly on their network. All corporations want to keep their networks secure, and in this day and age with security and the cyber crimes and everything else that goes on, it's important. It's really important.
Yeah, and of course, being in the insurance business, both of us know that, not only is it a matter of just keeping their network secure, but it also has to do with what the employees are doing with these phones.
Right.
And they could be held responsible if the employee is doing something they really shouldn't be with that phone. And so, I would probably do the same thing. I'd probably lock them down as much as I could if I had a real concern about either an employee or a particular exposure. Say somebody's going into a sensitive area where no photos are allowed in a client company, and the employee ends up taking a photo, maybe even inadvertently, not even intending to photograph what they weren't supposed to.
Oh yeah, that's
still have the problem.
That's the thing, yeah, and people may visit different locations, and again, we're both in the insurance industry. You have to, when you're working on a claim, it really depends on that client. If that client really wants you to be taking pictures, I mean, and in that situation, maybe they kind of need to do that because you want to make sure you're getting the proper information for that claim. But it's important to know that they control things as they can, but they got to really, there's a fine line. There really is a fine line of what you lock out and what you don't lock out, really.
Yeah. So let's go to a worst case scenario. Let's say that my phone or my iPad is lost.
Mm-hmm.
Jamf gives you the option to wipe that phone.
Absolutely.
Now, we have the option to wipe that phone as Apple users. Is there a difference between the Jamf wipe and the Apple wipe, or is it just a logical thing to include in Jamf?
It's a logical thing, really. I mean, yeah. When we have it in the world of Apple, that means we're required to set up an Apple ID and Find My iPhone, and you have to use the Apple products. With Jamf, it's really giving the enterprise or the company peace of mind, knowing that they have control of it. Think of it this way: if you don't have control that Apple does, right? So you have Find My iPhone, all their services, but that's what they do. It's only controlled by what they do. You want to have control of how you do it when you're in your business. So that's what Jamf's going to do. You're assured based on the services that you look at when you look into Jamf Now or Jamf Pro for that matter, and making sure that device has been sent a signal and saying it's going to be erased as soon as it goes on. As soon as someone turns it on and goes on the network, it's gone. It's going to be erased. I mean, again, yes, the Find My iPhone works the same way, but the company doesn't have control of that, and that's a big thing.
Right. And when we're talking wiped. I mean, now you've lost any chance of locating your phone, of getting it back, or anything. So how do you feel as an administrator, David? If I called you and said, I lost my phone somewhere between here and there. I think I know where it is, but I wanted you to know. You can lock the phone down. Is that correct?
Yes, you could lock it down too. I mean, of course, Find My iPhone does that too. But yeah, Jamf has those tools in place as well. Again, it's another secure piece of the puzzle for an enterprise, is making sure that they're assured that they do that.
Right, but okay. So from your standpoint, when would you consider a phone lost? I mean, if it went over the side of a boat or fell out of the car or whatever, yeah, it's probably pretty definite that you should wipe it at that point. But if I think I left it in the hotel room last night and I'm going to go back tonight, you probably lock it down. But at what point do you say, hey, it's gone? We have to write it off and move on? My
opinion is you want to give the user a little bit of a chance to be able to recover the device, because especially if it's a bring your own device, you don't want. Depending on the company, how they have it set up, I would still want to give them a little bit of an opportunity to make sure that they could try to recover it. And if they can't recover it, I think there's some leeway. Again, all depends on what the company policies are. My opinion is, well, I would like to give the user a little bit of a chance to be able to recover the device, because you and I both know how difficult it is once you switch phones, and how you have to get it all set up back up again the way you want it, whether it be a brand new phone when you have to buy a new one, or resetting it up once it's been erased. So, but I think give the user the benefit of the doubt. It's my opinion.
But isn't that kind of one of the big advantages to Jamf? That, okay, if I lose my iPhone, or it gets destroyed or run over by a car this afternoon, I buy a new iPhone, or you give me a new iPhone.
Right.
You can hit the button and it restores the iPhone to the way that it was for the company.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you can do restore with it as well. Yeah. I mean, and I agree. Yeah, that gives you a good option too.
Yeah. Which brings me to, if in that scenario, we're talking a lot about apps and control and the phone's capabilities, but how about the data? Is Jamf a solution for backing up the company data as well?
No, it is not a backup solution at all. It's more of a control. So again, think about it as being MDM, mobile device management. So it does no backups at all. So you definitely have to make sure that you have other solutions in place to allow for backups. So this is purely device management, and that's it.
MacVoices is sponsored by Smile at smilesoftware.com, the makers of world-class software for the Mac and iOS. If you've been listening to or watching MacVoices for any length of time, you know that Text Expander is one of my favorite utilities and is definitely my most used utility. So what's so great about Text Expander? First, it saves you time. Everyone has things that they type repeatedly: names, addresses, phone numbers, email signatures, and lots more. Text Expander lets you assign short, simple snippets to trigger any of those from within any application. 3 or 4 characters could expand to pages of text or code if you want them to. Second, because everyone has items like those, everyone can take advantage of Text Expander with almost no learning curve, and that's not something you can say about many productivity utilities. Third, because you do have to set up your snippets, it takes some time to recognize those items that you repeatedly type. Text Expander helps you with that by watching what you type and making suggestions about snippets that you might create to help you take more advantage of the program. Fourth, there's so many ways to use Text Expander beyond its nom de guerre. Autocorrect things that you frequently mistype by creating a snippet. Correctly capitalize proper names by creating a snippet. Create autofilling forms. The list just goes on, testifying to the depth of Text Expander. Now, I could go on and on about all the other capabilities of Text Expander, about how Text Expander is available to use in virtually every single program on your Mac, about how you can sync your snippets between your Macs so they're always available everywhere, about how you can sync your snippets with your iOS devices to use them there, but I think you get the idea. So here's what you do. You visit smilesoftware.com right now, download a free trial version, and get started. Make a couple snippets, and then use them. That first time your first snippet expands to whatever you've set it to be, you'll be hooked, because you will immediately understand how powerful Text Expander is and why I don't use it every day. I use it multiple times every single hour I'm working on my Apple devices. That's Text Expander for Mac, one of the truly great software titles by Smile at smilesoftware.com. Check them all out, but please check out Text Expander. You won't be disappointed. Thanks to Smile for being the longest-running sponsor of MacVoices. I'm sitting here trying to think, okay, if I'm using something like Pages, where the documents are stored in the cloud. I mean, obviously, I have the app on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
How is Jamf managing that? Does it just not allow, because it's company data, does it not allow iCloud use?
Well, there's where Jamf Pro comes into place. So you have your services like Dropbox and OneDrive. Some companies have OneDrive for Business. That product allows companies to be able to keep things in a contained cloud that's controlled 100% by that company. So there are in the Pro product of Jamf, you can go in and actually tell it, restrict the use of Dropbox or restrict the use of this or iCloud or any of those types of services. Well, you want to have some means of backup. So it really depends on the company, what they choose as far as what product they use. Some companies are perfectly happy with using iCloud and then just using the iCloud as the backup of the device. Or you could utilize any other type of those services, Dropbox or Google Drive or any of those cloud-based services. There's controlled environments in Dropbox. There's controlled environments in Google Drive. Depends on what type of setup you have relates to the services that all those other products provide. And of course, Microsoft too.
Yeah. So at this point, is Jamf now something that you would recommend? Obviously, for business, it's a perfect solution.
Absolutely.
And for education, it's probably a perfect solution. Is it something, especially Jamf now, is it something that you would recommend that a family maybe be able to manage the devices for their kids, or if you have multiple devices? I know one of the things I tend to like to try to do is my iPads are set up pretty much the same way. My iPhone's a little bit different. Right. Is that something that would make sense for me, that if I bought a new iPad, I could just hit the Jamf Now button and it becomes my iPad the way I like it?
Yeah, I think it has its benefits in your situation, in like a family or small business, or even just a person who wants to get used to how managing devices is. Is it for a family? Yeah, I would probably lean towards no. I mean, unless you have a large amount of devices and you really want to kind of geek out a little bit and go through and actually get deep into managing devices, because I think, as we all know, I think all of us are relatively satisfied with what Apple provides as far as their services go with Find My iPhone and iCloud Backup, and all that stuff. So,
yeah, I guess I'm going down the parental control thing a little bit,
right?
And maybe, since I'm not a parent, so, maybe I'm trying to be a dictator here. But okay, so the kid's misbehaving, and so I delete Snapchat, for a day and a half, and then put it back. Okay, so I probably would have to sleep with one eye open, but the idea is that, I would have that control. Now, I don't know enough about parental controls to know if they have that kind of granular control, or control to that degree that I could actually delete the app.
Right.
It's an idea that strikes me as one that would be ideal for this.
It could be. Yeah, it definitely could be. Because I'm not real 100% sure about the parental controls. I think you have to go by per device with Apple, and using the parental controls setting. And it all depends on the iCloud account too. So, I mean, the parent could actually control what the password is and how the access to that iCloud account is. So they have that option, whereas a Jamf could do a little more control, specifically Jamf Now. Jamf Now doesn't do all the scripting that I mentioned and all the packages and all that stuff. I mean, Jamf Pro is what's got all that stuff that controls it even more than that. And of course, that's only for enterprise, 100% enterprise only product. But Jamf Now doesn't have a lot of that type of control, enough that it could be, a possible option, setting up the blueprints and being able to restrict things.
Yeah, I've played a little bit with it. You can, if you sign up for Jamf, you get the first right. 3 devices free forever. So you can go and play with this and not have it cost you anything, and see if it is for you. But I really do that whole idea of being able to set my iPad the way I like it, and then move to another iPad, or duplicate it, or if I add an iPad, or get rid of my iPad Pro and go to an iPad Mini, or vice versa. That I usually want the same apps on the home screen, and I usually want everything organized the way that I have any of them organized. And
right.
So that and frankly, that's something I don't think Apple does provide, as far as I know, an easy way to do that. So this would be ideal if you have that want or need.
Yeah. And again, the great thing about the Jamf Now is you can try it for free. And again, we're not advertising here, since it's not advertising this, but that's what's great about it. I mean, I'm not paying for it because I want to be able to try it out and see what it does. And it was great for me to be able to compare it to what Jamf Pro does versus what Jamf Now does. So, and seeing really the major differences. And believe me, there's a world of difference. There really is.
Right. Now, getting over into the idea that you've done this deployment for your company. And again, we're being careful here as to what we say. Did you find it to be everything you wanted it to be? Did you find the experience to be overall? I mean, when you get software this sophisticated, it's tough to make it just brain dead simple. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you have a lot of controls, and as you said, so many functions so many decisions you have to make about what you, as the company, want to control on those remote devices. That said, though, how did you find the overall experience?
Experience was very good. Jamf has awesome support. So, I mean, they're a chat away from online, and they're very responsive, which is great. And that's the thing. You pay a good amount of money for a product like this. You want to be able to get really good support, and by none, they have very excellent support. It definitely takes it's a lot of learning curves, learning how the product works, and it's a work in progress because it's not something you can just flip a switch, install, and you do your session and get everything set up, and away you go. You still have a lot of extra work to do after the fact. That's what the nice thing about Jamf does is they provide what's called a Jumpstart. It allows you to be able to have a actual integrator come out and go visit your business and being able to sit down with you for 2 full days of reviewing everything there is to know about Jamf Pro, as well as getting it installed and doing the basic configurations. But any company is going to have to go beyond that because every company is different on how they want to set it up. So it's going to take a lot of extra time to get it the way they want it. So it does take time.
Right. Well, if you're a contractor, naturally, you're going to have a lot of different things that you're not going to want to disable that camera. But if you're working in a government environment, you may want to completely disable the camera and lock things down tight. So, you're right. There's so many different things. But that's always been, in my experience with Jamf and playing with it, that's been sort of the beauty of it, even Jamf now, that you have all this flexibility to say, okay, this is exactly what I want to do, and it lets you do it.
And then, nice thing is I got kind of 2 different perspectives. When you had me on a while ago last year when I went to the Jamf JNUC, the Jamf user conference, I wasn't a Jamf user yet, so I kind of just was kind of stand behind the sidelines and just kind of felt out to see what they do. Now that I've gone through it, I can't wait to go to the JNUC again this year because I really want to get to the conference and start digging in and doing even more of the things that they do. They have an online site called Jamf Nation that you can go out there and again, not even just the support team. That's everybody in the whole community with Jamf that answers questions, and they answer them pretty quickly. So if you get stuck with something, you can go out to Jamf Nation and being able to anybody can sign up for a Jamf Nation account. So you don't have to even have an account if you want to dabble in and finding out what Jamf is all about. Go out there and ask questions, or just search for all the different things that it does. So that's what's great about their community as well as their product.
To harken back to that discussion when you were there, I know because I had some discussions with Adam Hanks too about that conference. Yeah, and the people that attend this conference. We're sitting here talking about. Well, I'm not going to speak for your company, but I'm thinking in terms of 10, 15, 20, 100, maybe 200. These are people that have, in the thousands of devices to deploy.
Right.
And so they need something very serious, and Jamf delivers that. And I think that's one of the times when I first started to play with it, I got interested. Then I heard you and Adam talking about the conference. It's like, wow, I'm really not appreciating the depth of this and how important a piece of software this is for the Apple community and for Apple itself, because it makes this and my iPad and everything else a business tool that can meet the requirements of so many different kind of businesses, and then all those nasty little liability and confidentiality issues.
Oh, absolutely. And there was, as I talked about, there's 3 different core audiences for Jamf. You got the healthcare industry, you have education, and you have enterprise. Their 2 biggest businesses is healthcare and education. And I talked to people at the conference that were in education. They're managing 2,000, 3,000 iPads. Think about that. How many iPads they have to manage? And every single person I spoke to said that, this is the way to go. It's a no-brainer. Makes it very easy for them to manage these devices. When they're issuing them out to students, very easy to get them in and out. If something's lost, doesn't work, they can just reset it. It works very, very well. So that's in itself, like I said, Jamf is a good product that just goes along with what Apple hasn't really filled in the gap as far as that goes.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody go. I believe it's jamf.com.
Jamf.com, and there's a link at the page there. Just go to Jamf now, and just sign up. Just play around with it. There's no reason why you can't try it out. Now, you got to be careful because if you start playing around a little too much, and you could start blocking things out. Just be aware. I'm doing it on secondary devices. When you and I both always have extra devices we can play with. So, but tread lightly, because you could mess something up pretty quickly if you aren't careful. So.
Yeah, well, but that's kind of true of so many of the programs we play with. Don't hit that format button on your hard drive. It's not a good idea.
Exactly. So, but yeah, I can't recommend it enough, and both sides, Jamp Now and Jamp Pro.
Great. David, thank you. I want to make sure, we're not going to get into it too much now, but you were accepted as a speaker for MacStock 2018 this year.
Joining you? Yep.
I'm looking forward to seeing you there, and we'll get you back on the show definitely in the very near future to talk about what you're going to be presenting, because I know that we've got a great bunch of presenters. Dr. MacVoices is keynote this year, so...
Yeah, MacStock conference. I can't wait. I mean, this is I was honored to be part of the quite an elite group we have coming this year for speakers. So,
yeah. So that one is MacStock2018.com, folks. Go check it out.
Please do.
David, we'll see you again. Thanks so much, and thank you for participating in this.
Thanks for having.
Still working out a couple of the bugs, but we're getting there.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. I'm getting notes in the chat room saying that my mic is not. I think the phrase was not making it. So I apologize if my audio is not quite what it should be. I was trying to do some live fire fixing here, but apparently I didn't make it. So I'll be working on that. We'll see you back again here for another Facebook Live. And if you don't join us here, look for us in all the usual podcast feeds and channels. Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our MacVoices Facebook group and get more out of your Apple Tech with MacVoices magazine, free on Flipboard. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us at patreon.com/MacVoices and join these folks who help keep MacVoices coming to you. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.